Okay, back to the manifold and the plenums, and let's get these turn downs put on. So what was going to happen was this was going to happen. That was the original plan, or the original plan for the side exits. So as you can see, started playing with shaping this to get it to fit, and then I had a potentially great idea. We'll find out here in a second, and that is, let me go back to this. Part of this is, you can see some of the different lines that are drawn on this. I want this to be short as possible while still providing enough drop to make things fit well. And after looking at this, it was going to be, you know, trim it, trim it, trim it, trim it, trim it, trim it to get it to fit. And I thought, well, wait a second. Wouldn't it be easier if we just got a big old hole saw and punched a hole in the right place in the side of the plenum? And then what that would allow, once this hole is shaped appropriately, that would allow us to both slide this in to the you know, play with different distances and how it fits. But the other thing it gives me the ability to do is to rotate this in terms of the fitment. Because if I rotate it, it means that the throttle body itself is moving farther rearward in the car, and it fits better under the engine lid, potentially. So that is what's about to happen. So drill a hole in the side of the plenum. Okay, time to drill the holes. So what happened was, Martin had a great idea. Martin's here. Say hi, Martin.
Hey.
We got a chunk of aluminum and drilled some holes in it and bolted the plenum to it for a couple reasons. One, we can clamp it down and it just makes it easier to drill. But then when we come back later and start welding, this will serve as a bit of a heat sink because there's not going to be a lot of material here. And then we're also going to have to change up, you know, fix this, reshape that. So there's going to be a, you know, having a heat sink and having something that we can bolt the two to try to minimize the distortion is going to be important. So now it's going to be drill a center hole and then hold on tight while we start to use this big old honking hole saw. What could possibly go wrong? And that is the center of the final, or, you know, close to the center of the final distance, so that the turn down ends up kind of coming in right at the top of the plenum. So there's going to be a bit of, you know, it's not going to be perfect, but I know that it can be, especially if we rotate it. But now the fun's going to begin. We're going to drill a big old honking hole in the side of this thing. All right, so now we knew going in that we were undersized. This is a 3-inch hole saw. And we knew that we were going to need to then, you know, grind sand to get this opened up enough, which is fine because that gives us the opportunity to adjust. You know, you can see here we went through part of this nub. I knew that was going to happen. That's just going to potentially require one special shorter fastener there. So let the fitment grinding begin. Okay, so there is one hole in the side of a plenum and a little bit of grinding to get it to rough fit. Now it's a question of fine-tuning this, fitting it in the car. All right, here we are in the car, and I think, forgetting for a second that because of clearance and all the other shape changes we need to make here because of the rotation, and because the tube isn't completely round during this curve, they deform slightly anytime a tube is bent. This is pointing uphill. It won't be pointing uphill in the end, it'll be pointing downhill. But if I rotate it back like this and angle it down, I now have the ability to do a very brief turn into an airbox that could be here, or somewhere in this general area. And the other reason that this is good is you can see what I was trying to avoid. The farther back this rotates, the easier it is to keep the same 914 shape in this area. And the farther away this, or the farther the throttle body moves under the grill area, the closer in the hump can move, rather than have to be out here. If this was pointed straight out, you can see that the throttle body would start to mess with this area. So I am going to go with this rotation. It gives it a little bit of visual movement. And so we just indexed on the side there. Now it's just a question of going after tuning everything to get this tube to sit down flat, so it comes directly out of this and starts to curve down, which will move this downhill even more, and I won't have to clearance that quite as much. Again, I can have a narrower bump up in this area, which I think is going to be a better fit for the look of the car. So this is, the opening in the plenum has been ground. The shape of the turn down has been set. We've checked for level. Let's do that again, just to be sure. We've checked for the height of the tube coming out of the pipe, or the tube coming out of the plenum. We fit it to the car, we rotated it, we got a height gauge set up at the base so that this is now positioned and duplicatable on the other side. So now we're just going to get it tacked on there. All right, so the reason this is getting tacked on here is because there's excess material of the turn down coming through. So all we're going to do now is scribe around the outside of that. I'm going to let Martin do the scribing while I do the talking. So he's going to scribe around the outside of that. Then we're going to snap the part off, and those tacks will serve as reference points to get it repositioned when we go to put it on permanently. So just to speed things along, we're going to get things, you do a conservative cut on everything, and we'll get it close. And rather than grind, it turns out that a nice pair of tin snips, of all things, will get us much of the way there. And like I said, I'm not trying to get close to that line, because we want everything to be conservative. And the die grinder makes quick work of this, as you'll see here in a second. All right, then it gets fit again. And you can see with a little bit of welding, we got plenty of material in there to make sure there are no holes get blown. And then it'll just get dressed once it's final welded.
We are the gods of hellfire, and we bring you fire.
All right, then rather than bore you with doing this whole other side the same way, we did the whole other side the same way, got the turn down trimmed, got the holes set up correctly, and then it was a matter of using that height block that we had when this one got put on. We tacked this back on using those two tacks as the register marks. So this is the angle we wanted everything. Fixtured the plenum down and set up measurements, and essentially use that same height block but measured forward from a similar point in place in space to get back to where these are. So these are even in the car, remembering that the plenums are not in the same position because of the cylinder offset, but they'll sit, the throttle bodies will sit in the same place in the car. So now we're going to get this tacked on, and we can do a first fit in the car with the throttle bodies on. Bam, look at that. As soon as I saw it, I thought, that looks like an engine intake manifold doing its best version of most muscular pose. All right, I'm happy with how that turned out. It looks even, it measures out evenly. So I'm good with that. And I think I like it a lot better than poking straight out the sides. And yep, we got final welding to do, but I wanted to make sure everything checked out. Now I have to say, the one thing I'm not thrilled about is the fact that you've got the action, you know, the throttle body drive-by-wire motor visible on this side, and it's obviously because they're not mirror image parts, same part, you've got that one hidden on the other side. But you know, that's just the way it's going to be. And not that this is going to do a good job of it because it's not trimmed to fit yet, but you can now see that, right? This obviously is in the way, and the bump is going to have to get moved. You know, I don't know, maybe the bump can start about here, which isn't a whole lot wider, and I think we can come up with something attractive. And you can see that, you know, the view, if I choose to do an engine grill in the same traditional 914 way, you'll get a view of something's going on down there, and obviously the plenum's poking through. But now the fun begins to try to come up with a design and work all that out. So that's going to do it for this episode. Psych, it's not yet over. Check it out with the deck lid on it. Now granted, this is a crap deck lid with all the holes from the fabulous spoiler and the rust and the damage that's been done to it, but this gives you a much better idea of kind of the total end vibe of what this thing's going to look like. And I'm really happy. I just did a quick hack job to trim away so the deck lid or the engine lid would close, but this gives you an idea of kind of how this is going to work. And I think it's very cool. I think it's very cool. Very cool. So super happy with that. And now we just keep chipping away. Final welding will happen. And I think it's time for me to just bite the bullet and buy all the electronics and start working up the wiring harness for the engine and get serious about making this thing run. But anyway, that's it for this time. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Look forward to talking to you again real soon. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.